Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, and I welcome you once more to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, for another FRESCA FUEGO review. I am talking this afternoon about none other than The French Dispatch.
It began as a holiday. Eager to escape a bright future on the Great Plains, Arthur Howitzer Jr. transformed the series of travelogue columns into The French Dispatch, a factual weekly report on the subjects of world politics, the arts, high and low, and diverse stories of human interest.
You don't think it's almost too seedy this time?
No, I don't.
For decent people.
It's supposed to be charming.
He assembled a team of the best expatriate journalists of his time: Berenson, Sazerac, Kremens, Roebuck Wright. These were his people.
Just try to make it sound like you wrote it that way on purpose.
Yes, the latest star-studded endeavor from the enigmatic, the polarizing, yet the always profound Wes Anderson. So yes, I'm very well aware that Wes is not for everybody, but I have found something to appreciate in everything that he has done. I've seen everything that he has done, and yeah, I probably in the upper echelon for me is stuff like Tenenbaums and Zissou, and I loved Isle of Dogs, and yet then there's other stuff which I was a little less receptive to, but nonetheless, his films are always intriguing, and this is definitely, at least for me, the most daring thing that he has ever done. It's probably the most, like, just all-star ensemble that he has ever assembled, at least in my estimation. And so, overall thoughts, I appreciate the film's ambition, but I will definitely not say that I liked it in its entirety because of the fact that this is really a series of vignettes, almost an anthology of sorts, that is bookended by kind of a centralized story, which is about Bill Murray as this editor of a publication called The French Dispatch, and he dies at the very beginning of our story, and he had strictly said that when he died, he is the editor-in-chief and everything, he wanted the publication to cease to exist. So it lived and died with him, despite its many years of dedicated assembling and writing and everything entailed. And so it goes into 4 different stories. The first one being relatively short, and it's Owen Wilson going around France and just seeing the way places have aged over the years. And so it's really just a love letter to not the most beautiful and wondrous areas, but slums and strange places with like horrors and pickpockets and sort of thing that you wouldn't necessarily see a loving sort of attention put towards, but in his case, he found a sort of grimy beauty in it, so to speak, and it's very nicely shot, and Owen is charming as he often can be. He isn't always, but nonetheless in this, as he's riding around on his bike through the town, it definitely induces some laughter, especially when he's being chased by these half-drunk on the blood of Christ, like altar boys. It's very funny. And so, yeah, that is one of these many, we get 4 of them in total, as I said, stories from past publications that are going to be assembled for this final farewell issue. And so, it starts out, you know, very amusingly. You also have a lot of characters in this, most notably within the news team, that don't get a lot of screen time. Jason Schwartzman, Elizabeth Moss is in there too. So yes, you've got lots of people as far as within the office, but really those who get the most screen time are the ones who are in the middle 3 stories, which get a much more significant chunk of the runtime. And my personal favorite is the one that we immediately segue into, which stars none other than Benicio del Toro, and he is this guy who committed a double murder, a brilliant artist, and from this Jewish-Mexican family, and he ends up in a French prison. And so, yeah, it's very amusing in the way that it fleshes out his backstory, the way he gets involved with this guard at the institution named Simone, this French woman, beautiful by the way, and she's like just parading around naked through a good chunk of it. So yeah, you know, French and their nudity, they are pretty degaff about it. And he's like painting her, and yet he's doing these abstract paintings that come to the attention of none other than Adrian Brody, who is also terrific in this, who is basically serving a small sentence for like some tax evasion, you know, improper bookkeeping and stuff. And so he sees this painting that Benicio's character has done, and he goes to his uncles, one of which played by Henry Winkler of all people, and he's like, yeah, we need to turn this into our next artistic venture that we will peddle around the entire world. And sure enough, it works. You may argue that the art community is fooled by this new art in all of its abstractness and stuff, and I can give merit to the creativity, but there is also an essence within the script of poking fun at that sort of community of people as well. Nothing like the pretentious one that was on Netflix that had like Gyllenhaal and various other peeps, but still, it's a little tongue-in-cheek with some of the humor, and it's one of the funniest, and the way that that narrative plays out is quite good, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. The second one, I think, is the weakest of the stories, and it's revisions of a manifesto, and this one is told through the voice of Frances McDormand. It also has Timothy Chalamet as this university kid or college kid, even if he was high school, but he's of that, you know, late teen age variety, and it takes place that, from what I at least could estimate, in like the post-World War II 50s-ish regions of France and stuff. And so Francis helps him to kind of refine this manifesto that he is putting together to try to mobilize the students, and he wants to be an activist and a protester. And for me, it was the most, dare I say, dull, uninspired, and least funny of all of these. Now, in every installment, we do get interesting cameos, and this one is no exception. You have Christoph Waltz in there for a scene where he is kind of being matched up with Frances McDormand, and while it's a very brief scene, it's quite amusing. And Chalamet's character, he's romancing both Frances McDormand to a degree as she is assisting him, but then there is also a fellow student, this girl who basically goes around with like a Vespa helmet on and goggles and everything, and this like biker jacket the entire time. And so he is at odds with her character that is his same age, but you can tell that, as often happens with younger people, even back to like grade school, when a little girl likes a boy and she'll go up and just like hit him in the arm. I had that experience happen in first grade with this girl Jennifer. Very funny. But yeah, that story is the least amusing, at least to me. And then finally, the third and probably the most unexpected in a lot of ways stars Jeffrey Wright. He is being interviewed by Liev Schreiber, and this is something that I do have to mention, is that I loved from a filmmaking standpoint the way Wes Anderson approached the use of black and white versus color. And so color is, I guess, it's most notable really in the Jeffrey Wright bit, in the fact that when the story is actually being told by the journalist who wrote it, and this is very much a rumination on journalism and just how you approach a story. In the case of the second one, or technically the third one, but the second major story, the one with Frances that I just mentioned, that she kind of ruminates on artistic neutrality and how much you should really get involved in the stories that you're telling. Then in this third and final major, larger chunk, the one with Jeffrey Wright, the way when he is actually recanting the text that he put to page, that's when it shifts into the black and white. And yet when he's kind of recalling it in the discussion with Liev Schreiber's character on television, that's where it shifts back to color. And then when we're back into the story, it's in the black and white as he is basically narrating it and recanting his text. And so very, very sharp and smart means of going about it. And in this final story in particular, there are even a few bits where we shift to full-on animation, like a hand-drawn animation sort of style. And yes, from a kind of quirky and art house cinema standpoint, it makes sense, but I really think it was from a feasibility and from a budgetary standpoint, because there is a car chase, there is a hot air balloon kidnapping, and so, but yet food is at the very core of this one, because Jeffrey Wright had kind of, as Bill Murray brings him into the fold, it starts out with writing about food, and yes, he has done various other things and would as well, but he is investigating the fact that this French police force have like this specialty chef who is part of the police force, brilliant culinary master, and the reason for it, and the reason he is always on hand and has just an array of ingredients and recipes and all kinds of things that are often pre-prepped and ready to go, is that the best detective work cannot actually happen unless you have been properly fed. It allows the head to, function a little bit better, the investigation to run more smoothly, think outside the box. It's like those stupid Snickers commercials equivalent almost, where, you're not yourself when you're hungry. And in this case, it's very true, but the head chief, his son, is kidnapped, and there's this whole ransom situation going on in correspondence with a character played by Willem Dafoe, who is at that point in police custody. More mainstays show up in this particular story, and fresh faces like Sausan Ronan, I cannot remember her name, girl from Lady Bird, she's in this, and various others. It's another one that veers more into the amusing, but it's just funny because Jeffrey Wright's character was supposed to be there for a taste test and to rate the savvy and the prowess of this particular police chef, essentially, that is a part of the force. And yet it veers into something more just zany and unexpected than anything that he could have anticipated. And so then we bookend finally with picking up the pieces of Bill Murray's demise. And so with each vignette, though, we do segue back into the editorial feedback of Bill Murray's character, and his notes and suggestions and stuff are as amusing as you would anticipate from Bill. And so yeah, I cannot give this like anywhere near a perfect rating like I probably would have for Zissou and Tenenbaums, but I was very impressed with this film, once again, just to double down on its ambitiousness. And so I put 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and I don't do half Fuego Fireballs on here, so I guess I do have to shift more so to the 3 out of 5. It's good, but I definitely wouldn't say it's great. It's very inventive though, and very much a Wes Anderson movie, and if you are into his stuff, and I know it's a little polarizing and not everybody is into it, nonetheless, it is a bueno film. 3 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. So, I have been Jaime En Fuego, the aforementioned. You can find me on all social media sectors, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. Just recently did a review of The Harder They Fall, which is a brand new black western, which is badass. That's on Netflix exclusively. And what else? The Last Duel, the new Ridley Scott, was just done recently. Gonna do a review of The Eternals coming up. So yeah, it's been very exciting relaunching this channel to a degree after taking a short break for my birthday month in September, and then also in October, which was a spectacular month where everything was horror show related. So I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rat Status, and until the reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, cinemigos, constant viewers and readers occasionally, I'd like to say thank you. I hope we have been well met and that we share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, remember, if you are down for it, head out to the cinemas, support them, and check out The French Dispatch.